Video podcast is I'm going to take you on a tour of the USS Cairo, or Cairo, as it's sometimes pronounced, which is a gunboat on the Mississippi River during the American Civil War that is found at the Battlefield at Vicksburg in Mississippi. In 1993, I took the family on a vacation through the South, and we spent a lot longer time at Vicksburg than they really thought we would spend. But I've got great pictures otherwise. And I'm going to be able to show you the kind of iron cladding that is used on these particular ships. In this presentation, this is part of my Civil War presentation, and normally I have blue and gray on so that I don't offend anybody in the classroom. My family fought for the most part on the Confederate side, although we did have some members of the family from Ohio that fought for the Union. So I never, generally in class, I wear blue and gray. So black and red will have to do. I guess I'm British today on this particular outfit. So let's go to the slides and I'll show you some of the things involved with naval warfare in the American Civil War. Okay, as you can see here on this particular slide, this is the introduction to the naval part. And most of the slides are of the USS Cairo. But I had to put a monitor in Merrimack in there. It's what everybody remembers of the American Civil War. It's a nice little painting showing the CSA Virginia over here against the Union Ironclad monitor created by the Swedish engineer Mr. Ericsson. It's the first true naval battle between two fully ironcladed ships, and brings about a complete change in naval warfare. As you can see, March the 9th, 1862. This is a still picture of the Monitor and her crew, and you'll notice that it does take a pounding, and it has will have some dents and dimples. The Monitor went down in a storm in the Atlantic Ocean. It has been discovered. It is part of a underwater national park at this particular time. There were no crew on board. It was being towed. These, as you can see, these Monitor-type ships. This is one that's on the Mississippi region. Very, very low line. So if you put that out in the Atlantic Ocean, it'll act pretty much like a flat-bottom bass boat. It'll go over the first wave and through the second one. Here's another picture of a Monitor, and this turret will turn, and you see the smokestacks, and they're quite noisy on the inside, quite dirty in many cases, but pretty good protection. Now here you have an armored paddle wheeler, so there's all sorts of attempts to do the protection against the various shells and artillery pieces that are being used. But this is the Css Cairo, which was built in 1861. It's built by James Eads and Company in Mound City, Illinois. It's one of 7 what are called the city ships. It's named after a city rather than another type of a location. Now this ship is 175 feet long. It is approximately 51 feet wide at its widest spot. It could be floated. It had a draft of 6 feet. So as long as you were in more than 7 feet of water, you were okay. It had a top speed of 4 knots. So it is going to move at a snail's pace. The river probably moves faster than the ship would at this particular point. It carried 251 men, which is that's a lot of people to put inside of one of those. Most of them are in the area of the back section where you have the propulsion and the engine, firing the engine and doing all of that. And then you have the various guns. Now it had 6 32-pound guns, 3 8-inch guns, 4 42-pounders that are rifled, and 1 12-pounder. So it has a significant amount of firepower. But one thing you will notice, you're not going to be able to elevate these guns. As long as you're at the same level, you're okay. But if you're trying to shoot up, you will have a problem. Now this is the museum today. This is the Cairo today. It was discovered in 1956 by Edwin Barris and several other associates, Don Jacks and Warren Grabeau, They found it in 1956 using a metal detector and some other stuff, but it is not really officially put in this position until 1980. They tried to bring it up out of the muck and mud in one piece. That didn't work. They then had to break it up into sections, into 3 sections. Then the armor was stripped off of it and taken to Pascagoula, in Mississippi, where they could restore it. Then it's all brought back, put together, and they have it over this canopy region. And I'm going to take you down into the ship. We'll walk through it. The material, it hit a mine, by the way. That's what happened to it. That's on December the 12th, 1862. It becomes the first ironclad ship to be sunk by a mechanical mine. And it went down, and the river silted over the top of it, which is why it was so well preserved. But inside the bluff that I'm standing on is the museum that has all of the artifacts, the shoes, the cups, and whatever else that you have here. Went down in 12 minutes. Now, this is the front section of the ship. This would be the main conning tower area. And then you get to look at this armor. Now this, and I'm going to get you a side view of it. This is 2.5 inches thick. It is charcoal plated iron. Now then you notice that there's wood behind it. This type of armor plate has 24 inches of white oak planking behind it. If you just had the armor there, it would just crack like an egg. And it would then just come completely apart. So what gives it its strength is it's flexed to some extent, and that's what the wood does. The wood allows for the cannonball to come in and hit it, indents it a little bit, flex it back out. So that's pretty effective material here. Now you're on this is where the commander would have been. This is the capstan here. So you could have moved the ship around. The way they have it constructed, you can see all of where everything would have gone to make the ship maneuver. You could go back and see the engine room, the paddles, everything. It's really, really well done. And you notice, as I said before, this is about maximum elevation on these guns. And you could depress them a little bit, lower them down, and then of course the recoil, when you fire them, there would have been a chain or a heavy rope to keep them from running across the rest of the officer group firing these things in front. And here we have the side again. They have another type of armor in one other section. Now this is a really close shot showing that 2.5 inch overlapping charcoal iron with some of the wood planking still in place. They've had to restore some of it, but they don't have the full 24 inches. Now this is a little bit different. If you'll notice this side, this is at a part of the ship which is less likely to take on a direct fire from another enemy ship. So it would be a little weaker. And in this case, it's basically railroad tie. Railroad ties, railroad iron that they use for the track that is then stretched across here with a gap in between that will allow, you don't have to use as much. This is cheaper. It will still provide you some protection, but that is hopefully to cause the ball to deflect away, and of course you still have the main thing that's doing the protecting, which is the wood back behind it. Again, that's shooting down the area. Now when we went to visit this in '93, this is Vicksburg, Mississippi. This is an area where it gets really hot and the humidity is high all the time. And all of this will eventually rust again. They are now in the process at this time of rethinking the museum construction and perhaps putting it indoors or putting it in a facility that will allow for the elements to be removed, because it still gets wet. This shows some of the original planking where they have the wooden spikes or the iron spikes that hold all the wood together. And then this is the boiler room, showing where they build up steam. You know, anytime you have a boiler like this, these have to be cleaned, they have to be refitted. They're incredibly labor intensive, extremely dangerous. You can imagine if you're building up steam in one of these rivets or rivets pops and you get the steam burns. And there's the massive paddle wheel which of course you really can't see when the ship's fully completed and fully armored. You can just see a little bit of it, because this would be the weakest part of the ship in the rear. Almost all naval ships, even in the age of sail, the back side of the ship was the most open and the most prone to being attacked. And there are the rudders that move the ship, which of course you can see the way they have it constructed. You can see how the capstan works to make all this stuff move, which is quite fascinating. And then if you go in the museum, they have all sorts of ordnance that the ship would have fired. They have, you'll see some of these which are fused. They would put fuses in here. Here you have multiple cannonballs that you would fire in this canister. And then you have exploding shells. There's a variety of stuff that they had on the ship. And then this is a display, and of all places, there's a toy store in Vicksburg, Mississippi. And in the back of the store, they have this collection of cannonballs that basically have been dug out of people's yards, because practically every form of artillery that the Union had, they unloaded on Vicksburg. And everybody has it all over their property. And one of my former colleagues, and when I taught high school, Kyle Howe, who is a Civil War reenactor, when he went down here, he carted one of those 100-pound mortar shots back home. It's kind of a unique souvenir to bring back. It's not exactly the easiest thing to haul around either. But and then right at the very end here, I thought I'd show you the artwork. This is the Css Hunley, which is the first successful submarine to sink a ship with a torpedo. Unfortunately, they didn't live to survive, although the ship has been found. This is a picture of the most famous blockade runner that the South had, which is the CSS Shenandoah, which sailed all over the world sinking Union ships. And that brings us to Europe. This is the famous Manet painting of the battle between the USS Kearsarge and the Alabama off Cherbourg in France, in which the Confederate ship would not surrender and dueled it out and was destroyed. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's a little quick tour of the USS Cairo. If you're ever in Vicksburg, Vicksburg, Mississippi, I'll get shot for that. You've got to go to the military museum, even if that's all you see, because there just are so few of those type of early ironclads. That's the only one that you can actually see. And of course, you can also go, if you're in Philadelphia, you can see the last surviving ship of the Spanish-American War, which is the Olympia. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, don't forget to come by the website, summahistorica.com or historyacordingtobob.com, and leave a comment, ask a question, and check out the CDs. Thank you very much.